as I was saying, we've been doing work with these mustards. Mostly, I've only been working with the Caliente 199. Specifically, I've never tried the Rape or some of these other ones. And we've, like I said, been using it specifically for Phytophthora management. So what we do is we get it seeded as soon as we can work the soil in the spring. Usually that for us is the end of May, beginning of April. We go through and we have a no-till drill. We no-till drill it in.
Have you tried frost seeding?
No, have not tried frost seeding.
That may work.
Yeah, but you know what? I found out I did this trial 2 years in a row. First year we did it really cool in the spring. Brassicas like it cool. We thought, okay, we get good germination and establishment. It takes a little while for it to germinate, probably almost, a couple of weeks. I'm going to say like at least 2 to 3 weeks. But at that time the weed pressure isn't too bad. Then last year we planted it later, probably around the end or the beginning of the second week of April. Thought it might establish quicker because maybe we were a little bit warmer, we didn't have as much rain, we had more sun. Again, still it didn't really affect the time that germination occurred. It was still between like 2 weeks at the most. So I didn't really see a difference. So frost seeding is something that we can think about, but I don't know how.
I don't know if it'll work.
Yeah.
The other possibility, I was doing work on a biofuel, a bio-oil pennycress, which is in the Brassica family. And a key thing for getting germination on pennycress is when you put the seed down is you spray some nitrogen solution on the ground. And raising the nitrogen rates stimulates the germination. Who's the guy that at Cornell that did that whole thick weed book on... Yeah. In his book, he talks about that adding nitrogen to some of these, and it may be that it's the Brassica family in general. I'm going to be trying that on the Camelina next year, is to put some nitrogen down when you put the seed down so it's right with it, and that supposedly stimulates germination. I don't know if it works or not.
Yeah, that would be interesting for sure. We did do nitrogen trials to see how that would affect the biofumigant growth. We planted the mustard with 0 nitrogen down at planting, 50 pounds of nitrogen down at planting, and 100 pounds of nitrogen down at planting. And we saw major differences by the end when we were ready to turn it under in terms of biomass accumulation and size of the cover crop. Where we used 100 pounds, which is what the breeder is saying that this crop needs, we had significantly more biomass, above ground biomass in that than we did in the 50 pounds of nitrogen, and the 50 pounds had significantly more than the 0. So nitrogen is really important for this crop because the more biomass you have, the better biofumigant potential you can get with these crops. So what we do is we planted it, like I said, at the end of May, beginning of April. It probably flowered by the end of May. You allow it to grow for another 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks if you need to. It'll double in size after flowering. And then when it's ready, you chop it down. We used a flail chopper to come through and chop it into tiny little pieces, and that's what you want, those little pieces, because it's going to release more of that chemical that when it reacts will produce that biofumigant gas. So we flail chopped it, then we came through and we rototilled it in, and then we came through with a coulter packer to seal the surface. You want to seal in that gas, so that sealing is really important. Then we irrigated right afterwards on top to further seal that surface, and then water is needed for that chemical reaction to take place. So you don't need to irrigate it in, but you do need to make sure that there is moisture in that soil for that process to occur. Then, so this was around, I'm going to say we chopped it maybe around the second week of June. Then we waited about 10 days before we went back in and direct seeded our pumpkin crop. Or actually it was acorn squash. And you want that time, at least 7 to 14 days in between, to allow that biofumigant activity to occur. And they do say if you plant right ahead, it is going to have a negative effect on the crop. So allow that time to go through. And you might even want to, before you plant, lightly till that surface just to release any trapped gas to make sure that when you do direct seed your crop, you're not getting any negative impacts on the crop. And what we found is that we were able to significantly reduce the incidence of Phytophthora in those treated plots where we had the mustard compared to the no mustard treatments. I don't have my paper with me, but I did write a report. You guys have that. And on that table, you do see the numbers, how we did significantly bunch to try, and he just did kind of like a side-by-side comparison, and he found that he had reduction. We didn't go out there and take any data, but he said that he definitely reduced his incidence of fusarium. Not completely. I think you need to build it up over time. You know, the more that you go in there and fumigate to get these bad things out, the good guys are getting, you know, reproducing more, and then you're knocking back more of the disease. And I haven't tried it for anything else in terms of, I know eggplant for verticillium. We would love to look at it in potatoes, but right now it's tough to have our growers put it in right after their early harvest, get it plowed under, and then put a rye cover crop on. It's still something we're trying to work with them. And I haven't played around with a lot of the fall plantings. I usually just planted the mustards early in the spring. So I never did it, you know, maybe around this time, end of July, beginning of August, to plant the mustards and see